Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am PANCZASU, the mighty mixpara, and this is just a quick video that I make because I wanted to ask you guys and girls which faction shall I choose to play as in my next playthrough. Because I decided that I definitely do want to make a playthrough of the most recent add-on of the Endless pace called the Echoes of the Endless, which I have been playing a lot recently, and I have made a lot of custom races, well, quite a few, let's say, rather than a lot, and I could not decide which one to go for, so let's go over them very quickly. So first of all, there are three races that I know for a fact I'm not going to play as. The Asari, because I already played as the Asari. The Virals, because they are the first faction I made ever, and I just recreated them for nostalgia's sake, nothing more. And the Planarians, because I have been playing them a lot recently, and I do not really want to play as them again. So there are 5 other factions that I would still be interested in playing as, but I want you to choose one of them. So the factions I shall play in my next playthrough shall be either Siafu, who are really quite a bit like cravers, except in my opinion even more deadly. The lore I made for them is portraying them rather, as one of the most evil forces in the universe. They are complete and utter distractors, I would say. Their primary goal is to just kill, destroy, devour and stuff like that. The traits cover this as well. They have Craver's affinity and Craver's looks, and they are a powerhouse when it comes to constructing a ginormous fleets with hundreds of ships in each one of them, and they really live off both victories they achieve because of the dust recycler trait and knowledge gathering, and also by colonizing as many planets as they can because of both the Craver's affinity and a bunch of other, traits. On the other hand, they have pathetic heroes, Eternal War obviously, and that's about it. Of course, they also are pretty bad at constructing improvements, because that's really not what they are supposed to do, is it now? The Ophio Corporation, on the other hand, is a more of a neutral faction that is focused heavily around money and even more money, or dust as this game likes to call it. So with this faction I would never ever be hungry for dust, as I would have more than any other faction could possibly have, mostly because of the amazing traits this faction has in terms of dust. But in terms of industry, making my own fleet or anything like along those lines, no, I would have some really big problems, because this is a race of fun guy, and those guys are having some severe problems in using tools. So they are not the best constructors, but they are great when it comes to money making, mostly because they can mind control their partners. Other faction are the Judicators of Lyn. Is that how they're called? Judicators of Lyn? Yeah, that's how they're called. I'm sorry, I forgot, even though it's my most newly created faction. So those guys are kind of neutral as well. They are the jack of all trades, I would say, although they are pretty decent in terms of, trade routes, because they have the blockade breakers, they have the diplomat's ability, but all in all, they just are this neutral faction of, Judicators that are dedicated to preserving justice at any cost. So they are kind of decent at, for example, building their planets, and they do not have such a really bad fleet, but they're not excellent in pretty much any way. They're just all around decent, but not great at anything. And the playstyle with them is much more stationary than with other factions, because they promote, having a small confined empire that is all around, yet again, decent. Another faction is the Sujon, which is a Korean word for crystal, by the way. And as you may have guessed, they are the crystal race. So because of that, they are generally the kind of guys that, because they do not need to eat food, or rather they do, but they only eat non-organic matter, they have a lot of food production represented by cloning, and they also can sell the usual food to other factions, which also gives them quite a bit of dust. So they are decent when it comes to dust and food production. They also are sentenced because they are very smart race, as the law describes. But the problem with them, which isn't a really big problem, is the fact that it's kind of hard to figure out how to heal up a crystal, right? So they have sloppy sophons and the brutes as well, because they are kind of stationary race per se. All in all, a decent race. Also, optimal defense reflects the fact that they are made of crystal, so it's kind of hard to destroy it. And last, by no means least, the Chantry, who are a plant race for a change. Those guys are interesting because their only positive traits are focused around food production. So they have cloning free, growth plant free, crowded planets 2, and tolerant 1. Which means that they are really a kind of expansionist faction, and they do their best to colonize as many planets as quickly as possible, and then just win by their sheer numbers. However, on the other hand, they have a lot of other negative traits. For example, their heroes are not so great, not so bad either, but not so great definitely. And yeah, their ships are kind of fragile, mostly because of their plans. They sometimes do not notice that they have been hacked. So that's why they kind of risk their lives more than they should per se. And they also start with poor soil because, yeah, if plants on certain planets are moving, it's kind of hard to make the soil any better now, is it? And that's about it. I didn't talk about the affinities, but I'm pretty sure you had time to pause the video and see the affinity trait for each of those factions. And please do let me know in the comments which faction you believe out of those 5 I should play in my next playthrough. I'll of course be playing at the highest difficulty level, the endless difficulty, and I shall pass, mind my words. So until then, please, as I said, leave the comment who shall I play next, and I'll do just that. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you online.